Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Intuitive Psychology podcast. I'm here with my co-host Sarah Gregg, and we are joined by an incredible guest today. We are joined by the one and only Ben Coomber. So many of you will know who Ben Coomber is. Many of you will have heard of Ben. Perhaps you follow him on Instagram. Perhaps you've bought some of his supplements, but let me just introduce him properly. Ben Coomber is a multi-award winning nutritionist. He is a high performance health coach, a best-selling author, a dad of two, the CEO of Awesome Supplements, and he is also an accredited intuitive psychology coach and the host of the Awesome Human podcast. Ben, welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Exciting.
I know, it is exciting to have you. We're so happy that you're here. And, you know, I think obviously I gave a bit of an intro, and there will be people listening to this who know who you are, but there will also be listeners who don't know who you are. And what we like to get across to our listeners is a bit of a backstory of something more around how you started, you know, getting into where you are right now, because I'm sure you didn't wake up at maybe 10 years old, or maybe you did, and said, you know, I'm going to be an award-winning coach. I'm going to be a best-selling author. I'm going to really get into the fitness industry. What was your journey to where you are now, Ben?
So I got a addiction, shall we say, to self-development, self-improvement, because at the age of 18, I was obese, had a lot of health challenges, and went on a journey to improve my health and lose a lot of weight. And I lost 5.5 stone in 8 months and improved my health dramatically. And that transformation of self after a huge amount of struggle made me very intrigued by the various layers of self-improvement. So I started with the physical body, and at the time I was going to train to become an actor. I had acting school auditions and all of that, and it wasn't going well. There was friction, and I started to listen to the friction, but I didn't really know what to do, so I went traveling to find myself, as you do in Bali and Indonesia and all of that. This is 21 years ago now, and sort of came back and I was like, I'm going to pursue fitness. So became a personal trainer, sort of worked with the physical body very much, and started to specialize in nutrition. I just saw this like natural draw towards nutrition. It's the thing that really moved the needle for me with my kind of weight loss and my health and stuff. And then went to uni late, studied sports performance and coaching, and at uni had an opportunity to start a business because the uni sent an email around, was like, hey, would you like to be an entrepreneur? And my mum had always told me that I am entrepreneurial. So I was like, oh, okay. So they said there was grants available and whatnot. Long story short, I set up an online nutrition business, failed miserably, made all the mistakes, but then started another one that was successful. And at the time I was still trying to figure out what like career I wanted to do, what like really fit. I never really felt one-to-one coaching on a mass level was my calling. I always feel we should do one-to-one coaching as coaches, because that's where you really learn your reps. You have to sit in front of that other human and kind of see what's going on. You have to test your skills, your techniques, all that kind of stuff. But I just had this bigger calling, a bigger audience. There was something in me that was for more. So I started to get opportunities in the fitness industry. I started to make a bit of a profile for myself online. I started to headline as a speaker at Body Power. I started to run retreats all around Europe. I sort of traveled with my work as well, because I was a digital nomad, as you might call it. And it was just all rooted in this self-improvement, self-development, self-actualization. And I really saw the power of mindset within all of that. And I started to develop my skills, but never really kind of fully went into it, because my businesses started to do quite well and we started to have quite an impact. So I really kind of leaned into the entrepreneur side. And then recently, and that's how I sort of came across your course, I had my, we'll call it spiritual journey of awakening, whatever you want to call it, where I hit rock bottom. My health was in the absolute toilet. Had long COVID, which is a form of chronic fatigue syndrome, essentially. And that made me question every aspect of my being. And through the recovery process, I realized that just focusing on the physical body doesn't work. You don't, or in my case, I didn't get to where I wanted to be. So then I had to look at the mental body, the emotional body, the energy body. And that is when the real journey of opening up what, for me, true self-development looks like, I feel now sitting here in this chair.
Oh, wow. There's so much I want to say, but I'm like, Sarah, I want to bring Sarah in here because there is like so much that even we didn't know about you, Ben. So what we want to say here, Sarah?
I know both of us at the same time like lunge towards the microphone because when you're listening to the story, there's so many key bits that I want to unpick and dissect. And first of all, the first part of the journey and following that calling, you know, that requires real courage. And I think a lot of people listening to that will be intrigued as to how do you at 18 listen to that intuitive nudge and pull and take that and then follow all of the breadcrumbs along the way. But I think interestingly, you said something around what real personal development, self-development is. So what is that for you? Like, how has your view of that changed over the years?
I think in the modern world, and this is changing, and I don't know if it's just the echo chamber that I now live in, you know, we're very good at focusing on the physical body. We judge ourselves very much by how we look. The external world, marketing, companies are very much promoting us from a visual aspect, you know, buy these clothes, make yourself look sexier, etc. And ultimately, none of that matters unless you feel sexy, confident, courageous, in touch with yourself on the inside. And I started to see that, you know, I was doing all these little things, all these little hacks of, you know, I've read like 150 business books, 150 self-development books. My bookshelf is colossal. And I still wasn't any happier, any more fulfilled, any more connected to myself because I was running my life through my ego. And all of the stories that I'd built up about myself from my childhood. And I know the root cause of it all because I've done all the shadow work. I've worked through it. I've, you know, worked through all my traumas and stuff. Once you get to that, that's the domino that affects everything else. Like if you can get to your truth, if you know who you are, you can be confident. The weight loss journey is easy. The career change is easy. Finding that partner is easy because you are in yourself. You've embodied yourself. And I just kind of really buy into that now. I really see that. Like my outward effect of who I am, my marriage is better. Being a dad is better. I'm a better leader. Like everything is better because I am in full alignment with myself.
So powerful. And I feel like you mentioned, first of all, the 5 stone weight loss. Wow, like incredible to be able to achieve that. But I guess to do it in such a short space of time, what was it that got you, like 8 months, right? To do that in 8 months is wow, right? What was it that pulled you through that? You know, in that short space of time, like at 18 to go, right, you mentioned the word obese. And you're like, I need to get fit. I need to get healthy. Like, how did you do it so quickly in that space of time, Ben? You know, what was it about you that got you to there in such a short space?
Well, fear is a very powerful driver. And I had a fear of not being accepted, fear of not being validated, fear of not being loved. And that's come from my childhood, but it's also come from school. I was bullied all the way through school. I went to a private boarding school, military boarding school, and I was the only fat kid in the school. So I was always last at everything, never got a girlfriend, all of that kind of stuff. And that moment where I had to look at myself and say, oh, perhaps I'm the problem. Because I was doing all these auditions for drama school and I wasn't getting the part, wasn't getting in. And I had to look at myself and go, well, actually, you're really overweight. You're not healthy. You're not confident in yourself. You're confident playing a character, but you're not confident in yourself. And that was a very powerful driving force. Now, also, I got the gift of a good mentor. I joined a gym I sat down, and it was only an induction. And this is the power of an amazing coach. I had a 30-minute induction with this guy. That's it. I didn't pay for any personal training, nothing. And he said, dude, right, I want you to lift weights 4 times a week. I want you to, run once a week. We're going to change this with your diet, blah, blah, blah. And I just did it. I read the book he recommended. I turned up to gym 4 days a week. I did all of the things that he said, and the results just happened. And before that, I was struggling. I was struggling to lose weight. I was actually putting in the effort, but the tools in my toolbox weren't actually very good. And he just gave me a new toolbox, and I was like, boom. And then all of a sudden, it kind of vanished. And I think an interesting bit of context here, because this is a very powerful driver, I feel, and I think you would agree, of why people struggle to change, is people are not generally scared of failure. They're scared of what other people will think of their failure. And I was in the very fortunate position, in a way, that I didn't have any friends. When I was 18, I was bullied at school. No one really liked me that much. But when I left school, because it was a boarding school, everyone disappears. Like, I didn't have that, I didn't grow up in a town where everyone went to the high school and everyone had their friend groups, and you had that clique where you then had to what shall I do with my career? Oh, Dave's going to uni and Bob's becoming a carpenter and all that. I had none of that. It was literally me in my house. My parents lived abroad, and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And I suppose that's a gift, in that I used my time wisely, and I just said, well, this is what I want to do, and I just did it.
Yeah.
It's so interesting how we can make those changes when there's a blank canvas. And when you talk about the health journey, what I hear is, and especially the progression route, is often the external problems that a client comes to us with, whether it is, a relationship issue, whether it is manifest in the form of weight, addiction, unhealthy eating habits, whatever that is, it's often an ineffective solution to a deeper problem. It's that ineffective solution. It's a way of coping and keeping yourself safe. And actually, to your point, and what's really interesting is, when you can set yourself free of that conditional belonging, because I think so much of what we do when we're navigating change is that fear of, if I change, will I not belong? Like, where do I fit in? And actually, in that scenario that you've described from the past, there was no conditional belonging, because you were free from that, right? You were in your house. You didn't have the attachment to friends, and so you could kind of do whatever you wanted. Whereas I know in other people's and clients' lives, it's like, if I make that change, will I be loved and accepted? Will relationships have to fall away? So how has that changed? Like, you've gone through those, that from 18, built up a business, built an identity, I can imagine, within that business, and a persona as to who you are. So then you reach this point of your journey where you have long COVID, it's a real low point, you're questioning everything. How then do you step into that next iteration of yourself and allow yourself to evolve into what you're seeing? And what fears do you have to face whenever you're changing your identity and who people, especially in the public, know you to be?
So unfortunately, a lot of us live in a prison, mentally and emotionally, that's been constructed through our childhood, our belief systems, all that has happened to us. For the large majority of us, repeated small t traumas, little micro exposures, for some of us big. And when I was younger, there was an element of that, but I hadn't really constructed what my adult kind of prison was yet. So I was able to kind of catapult myself, build a career. But then as I built the career, the prison that was already there just got intensified and intensified. And it only came to a head when I wanted to evolve and change. And it's like, actually, I don't like the person that I've built, and I'm now doing it from a place of non-truth. And it's like, whereas a lot of people will have that prison and it intensifies over time because they'll go into a career that they don't want. They maybe go into a relationship that they don't want. So whether you have to deconstruct your prison at 18, 19, 20 or 32, 35, and for a lot of people it often is when you're older, because we have this phrase, the midlife crisis. It's actually, for most people, a point where you sit there and you go, gee, I don't actually like what I've built. I don't like the job that I have. I don't like the, my friend circle, whatever it is. So Well, I've actually forgotten your question. I've started to go.
No, it's you're following the thread exactly right. It's how do you then change that identity, because you've kind of gone from I'm 18, I don't have that conditional belonging, I have this blank slate, I can almost build like a persona and a person that I want to be, and there's no kind of conditional belonging around that. But then when you start to see success and people are engaging with you, engaging with your brand, liking who you are, you then become known as that person. So when you have this low point at low COVID, when you kind of like have this, oh, actually, this isn't what it's about. It's much more than the physical body, the thing that you'd be known for, changing the physical body, working with supplements, working with the physical. It's much more than that, and I want to go deeper. What challenges do you face then whenever you start to shed that identity or move into a different identity?
Yeah, well, the challenges are colossal because they're multi-layered. They're never a thing. It's never a door you have to unlock. It's like you've got a big key set of 32 keys that you've got to work through and kind of unlock. And I suppose a big thing is listening to the friction that we have in our lives. Like I had therapy for years and years and years, and therapy only ever brought me increased levels of self-awareness. Now, I'm not discrediting therapy. It has its role, but I think it has a huge amount of limitations because for many people, it's just working on the conscious mind. And I'd read what I felt like was all the books and I had all the therapy, and I was like, okay, consciously I get all this stuff. But I'm not able to do it, I'm not able to apply it. And we see this all the time in the world of coaching. That's often why we'll hire a coach. It's like, I know what I should be doing. I know I shouldn't eat the thing at 8 o'clock at night when I'm feeling emotional, but I do. That is the reality. And I just started to listen to all this friction. Now, the problem is, and I see this with a lot of men because I coach only men now, is we avoid our emotions. So we just sort of park them and we're like, right, it's the masculine thing to just keep moving forward, keep doing the thing, keep trying. But when you keep trying and it's not working, you've got to listen. And emotions are signals. Like if you feel anger, that should be an energy that something needs to change. You're frustrated. You don't want to do the thing anymore. It doesn't serve you anymore. So I was very fortunate that when I was depressed, I went to a session with a friend and I was having a massage, and he said, I was unpacking my story, and he said, mate, you need to go and see this woman. I was like, who is she? She's like, oh, she's an energy healer, trauma release therapist. She's just like, I can't really describe her. She's just a Jedi. And I got out of the massage, phoned her. 2 days later, I was on her couch. And in 90 minutes, this woman just changed my whole perspective on the world, energy, my psyche, everything. And at that point, everything just sort of came flooding through. It was like she'd unlocked one of the big keys. And I was like, wow, there's something in here. And that was the real kind of start of the journey. And then once you kind of walk down the road, you're like, oh, there's a real lot to unpack here. I've got a fear. I've got to let go of my fear of, controlling everything because it might fall down. And, oh God, where's all that like fear of, not being enough? And that was what it all came down to for me. There was like these 15, 20 layers of basically, am I good enough? As a human, as a man, am I good enough? Am I good enough to be loved? Can I love back? Can I love unconditionally? And that's where it all came from. And I went right back to the age of 3. I've done all the work to be able to kind of identify that. But the beautiful thing is when you start to pick apart all of this stuff, you feel lighter. Like your soul just starts to open up, and then you feel confident to keep walking the path.
I love this, and thank you so much for sharing so openly. And I know like there are so many people that will relate to this. It's that journey of I did all the things, I lost the weight, I ticked all the boxes, I have all this success, yet I'm still not feeling how I'm supposed to feel based on everything that I've achieved. And that sort of friction, as you describe, of why am I happy, and that can sort of layer on shame of why don't I feel the way I'm supposed to feel? I ticked all the boxes, I did all the things. And it's that real disconnection to self. And actually, when you talk about moving into like trauma, either big T trauma, small T trauma, and going back to moments of 3 years old, that's it, right? It's been able to go in and understand, okay, this thing happened and actually it's had this impact on me. And the word that keeps coming through for me as you were talking about your sort of childhood and your journey, Ben, was an element of safety, and that lack of safety to feel safe enough to really be you, to let people in, to, you know, like, as you say, to love and to be loved and to receive love. Like, allow ourselves to be fully seen as ourselves, that masculine way of being, you know, especially going to an all boys boarding school and having that, I guess, disconnection from, you know, as you say, typical family life as you would see other people, you know, living in, you know, with their families and having experiences like that. Your childhood was very, very different. And we know this to be true. You know, it truly shapes who we are, how we see the world, how we receive from other people, and the level of safety that we have. As you've gone on that journey, you know, at those moments of, right, my gosh, my business is really successful, and now I'm going to start talking about, you know, spirituality and energy healing and all of those things. How easy was that for you to then start making that shift, I guess, to start saying, right, okay, I know you're laughing, isn't it? Like, everything's like the physical and all of that works, but there's this huge component that we are missing. And let me just talk about that. How safe did you feel, and what did you have to do within yourself to be able to voice that to people in your world again?
Yeah, it was an absolute mess, colossal mess. So in hindsight, one of the things that I really wish I'd done with my business is properly sat down with the people that are in my life, my team, my employees, my wife, everything. I said, and just been really honest and said, I am not well. I need to get well. I need the space and distance to get well, and not kind of like hide from it and try and, you know, I'm off to my therapy and I'm lying that I'm out with the dog walking. Like, you know, none of that, just really own it. Because the problem is I tried to go on the journey of fixing myself while trying to grow a business and scale it. And the problem is that my business was ultimately built off the back of my personal brand. So my identity as a nutritionist and, you know, supplement creator and whatever was like really attached to it. So I'm starting to evolve and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do with my business? Like, how do I do this? So I'm walking into my business on a Monday morning, like, right, we're going to change this, we're going to change that. And everyone's like, what are you on about? Like, what? Why? Where's this coming from? And I was just shifting all the time. And it was destabilizing for the business. It was destabilizing for the staff. And the problem is at that point in time, I couldn't separate the personal and the professional journey because I just wrapped my ego up. The business was my identity. Like, that's how I got validity. Oh, the business is doing well. I'm getting paid speaking gigs, all that kind of stuff. And I really wish I'd had the confidence or a good coach to say, well, buddy, stand back. These are two very separate things. This is how we need to manage the business. And I'm able to see that now. But it was a real mess. And we suffered as a business a lot because of that. But hopefully I can just speak loud enough that other people don't make the same mistake.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of coaches that come and train with us. And one thing that a lot have in common, especially existing coaches, is this change and shift in identity. And it's a really interesting space and profession to work in because the personal can't help but shape your professional. You know, like when you have those personal realizations on your own journey, you can't unsee it, and you can't not be in integrity and in truth and in authenticity. So, you know, on my path and in my journey, like I can remember when I first started, so I've been a coach for like probably for 13, 14 years now at this stage. And I was big into like Tony Robbins and the high energy and the just, you know, push through and do more kind of like school of thought. And then once I unsaw that, I couldn't stand in integrity with that. You know, everything has its place on the journey. But I think the mistake that we make and the pressure that we put ourselves on as individuals in this space is that we're looking for that that final kind of pinnacle point, rather than just embracing the fact that it's a journey and different modalities will bring you to different destinations, and you learn and grow as you're on that way. What would you say to someone who's listening to this? Because I know there will be existing coaches listening to this who are established in their field. Clients know them for like one thing, but they want to change and pivot because they've evolved. If you could give, one bit of advice on that personal level, so maybe not the logistical business stuff of sitting down with your team, but that person who's feeling this isn't an integrity with me, I want to go deeper with my clients, I know that there's more, I've experienced more, but I don't know how to do that, or I feel nervous to do that. What would you say to that?
It's tough because, as you say, once you see things, you want to share things because they have brought more light into your life, more freedom. And you're like, I've got to share this. But then people are like, well, I'm not really sure what's going on here. One minute he's talking about nutrition, the next minute he's talking about energy. And I've got 2 clients in this exact situation at the moment. And what we've said is like, you've got your business here. This is everything that's functional and how you serve your clients. Let's ring fence this and protect it, because every business should have a strategy. So your strategy right now is to deliver X for your clients. They paid for this service. Your brand is set up in this way. Keep delivering that. And I know it's going to pain you in a way to do that because you can see opportunity, you want to evolve, but make your evolution over here. Like create extra time, special whatever, and then you build it. And then once you're really confident that it's the right time to roll it out, make that morph, then you create your kind of communication strategy of that, like how you're going to start to talk about it on marketing, social media and stuff, and then really start to share the journey, because it will be messy. If you try and navigate the kind of 2 together, it will be messy. And that's where you kind of, I think, have to go back to like almost like business basics. What's the plan here? How are you going to make the changeover? And it sounds a bit kind of like old school and stuff, but it's really needed, because otherwise the people that are onlooking, they're going to have to observe that messiness. And what I found, especially with my content, is, my message wasn't sticking anymore because it was in 2 different places. I was trying to navigate too much rather than like, this is what my content is about and this is why you should follow me. So it really suffered as well because I wasn't, isolating the 2 things.
Yeah. And I think that, to your point around giving yourself that space to go on your own healing journey, like I know we've said this a number of times, like you can't unsee it. And I think if you are in this space and you are in any level of integrity, when you see it, you can't unsee it. And I think we have a duty as people in this space to share that, not gatekeep it, but to really to share our knowledge, our wisdom, our insights, our journeys with people. And I love that, because when you said about being with that woman for 90 minutes, and that was a moment where you were like, whoa, this is why I am the way I am. Like, this is why I maybe have these repeated patterns, and this is why I feel a certain way. And to learn that actually you are the magic, like, and this is for everyone, like for you, Ben, personally, you're like, wow, I can, I had the self-awareness, but it's a felt sense. Like, she tapped into something for you that was not on the conscious, right? It sounds like she went to start to work with your unconscious, and with that was a massive changing point. Because like you said, 150 books, you've got a library full of them. We can all read the stuff, but being the embodiment is the biggest shift that we make. And yes, we can all read and we can all watch, but it is something entirely different. You're evidence of this, right? For X amount of years, you read the books, nothing changed. And you're like, what's wrong? Why can't I change? But it was the embodiment of it. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was unconscious work that you started to then do that then led you on to, obviously we met, but you started to go down that path of, right, there is deeper work. We need to start working more with the unconscious. And obviously we know that you do this as well. So talk to us a bit more about the changes that you see when we work with the unconscious.
So I'll just talk from my own experience, because I feel I've lived kind of through it. So when I went through therapy, we'd be talking about why I would have certain behavior patterns and how I would feel and how I was kind of coping in certain situations and how I could cope better, or have physical strategies to like, think of this before you do this. And sometimes it would work and sometimes it kind of wouldn't. And when I started to go into the subconscious, I was able to understand that, the reason why I feel the need to do that is because if I don't perform that action, I might not be validated for, what I'm trying to do in my work. Okay, what is that need to be validated? Where's that come from? Well, that's come from the fact that when I was a child, I didn't feel seen because at the age of 3, my parents gave me to an au pair, and my parents didn't really parent me in the way that I felt I should have received it in that moment. And that started my journey of, I'm not enough. And when I was able to go back into the unconscious and look at that memory and almost reprogram that memory visually, somatically in the body and alter that, I was then able to say, cool, that memory I had at the age of 3, I actually don't have that anymore. And through what I understand with the conscious mind and the fact that isn't a reflection on me as a person, I can actually let go of that energetically. That's almost removed from my body, so that actually when I go to perform that action and my conscious brain now says, no, don't do that thing because it won't lead to that outcome, I'm like, okay, cool. I don't have that fear in me that's driving that impulse to say, you need to do the thing to be validated, because I'm validated in myself. I've self-validated myself now. And that was where the power for me of the unconscious comes from, because we can go back in and let go, reprogram. There's various different kind of techniques depending on what needs to happen, what the memory is, what the physical held experience of that memory is. And just things started to become like really easy. And it's really hard to explain deeper unconscious, subconscious work to people, because it's like, what's it like? And it's like, well, if you imagine your soul, and your soul's, I don't know, an onion. An onion's a good analogy. Like, it's in there, it's beautiful, but it's got all these layers around it, and we're just slowly peeling back that story, that belief pattern, that, trauma that happened at age whatever. And after that, life just becomes incredibly easy, because none of that is in your unconscious anymore. It's literally gone.
It's so powerful, and we're frantically nodding here. If you're watching this on YouTube or on the video on Spotify, you'll see our heads kind of like two nodding dogs, because we relate so much to it. Because as Jill said, and your story, when you work with the conscious mind, and indeed, therapy, it's a brilliant modality, and it's not to and we should honor and respect that. But when we're always working with a conscious mind, it enables us to get locked in that behavioral pattern of, if I change something in my external, then something will change. So inevitably from 18, you did see changes in your external world. You built a business, you lost the weight, but the feelings remain the same. And I think that's the difference when we work with the unconscious. It's not about what we have been conditioned to believe, which is, again, kind of really rooted in this belief system of we're not enough, so it's like, well, if I do this work and then I do that, then somehow I'll get that validation. And I think that's something the majority of people, especially high performers, like deeply relate to. So it is hard for a high performer or someone who has that like unworthiness bit that's always in search of validation to wrap their head around it, because you're literally flipping the script. You're saying, actually, you don't have to act in order to get that reward. You have the feeling first, and then everything flows. Your actions flow from that place. Your actions always flow from that belief of I'm enough as I am, as opposed to I need to do this and I need to build it, and then hopefully that will be enough. So yeah, I get it. And it feels like freedom. Like it feels like freedom. If there was one word, it's like it feels like freedom. It feels like home. It feels like authenticity. Safe.
I think safe is the biggest thing, isn't it? It's creating safety for us to do anything. You said fear is a driver, and it is, and it's been a driver for me over the years. It's been a driver for you. But at some point, when we can allow ourselves to just let go of the heaviness of fear and just be knowing that actually I don't need this validation. What I need to do is I need to go in and validate myself and hold space for those parts of ourselves like anger, shame, rage, frustration, joy, love, all of these parts, to be able to go in and be with our own discomfort and not run from it or not hijack it or not, talk over it or, anything that we do distract ourselves from feeling what we need to feel. And if we can be with that. We understand actually I can create that safety within myself, and the rest is a byproduct. You know, Ben, you talked about when you did that, how life-changing it has been for you. And again, by the way, it's a journey. I did a post went on Instagram yesterday about, you know, healing it's never a one and done. It is layers, and it's multiple layers. Because when we allow our walls of armor and protection to fall down, we're kind of like a newborn. We're like, oh, I'm really feeling these things. Why am I feeling so sensitive to this thing? It was always there. It's just your armor's come down, and it's learning to do life like a little bit of a kid again. You're like, oh, I'm quite sensitive to that thing that you've just said, or I'm feeling a certain way about this, or I'm feeling really vulnerable, but not running from it and not doing what we always did. How much has life changed for you, Ben? Because you said it's been life changing. You know, you're a dad. I know I've said this, I've shared it before. When I started doing this work, definitely parent differently. I do get moments of, oh, am I doing enough for these kids? Am I messing them up? Oh God, you know. Do you still have those moments?
The only moment where I feel I've got it at the moment with a parent is managing that fine ground of like the boundaries that you want to uphold in the home, of like the no's that you need to say to kind of like keep them safe or teach them discipline, or like that's just not something we feel is a healthy thing to do, versus honoring kind of like their emotions and stuff. So I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and one of the things at the moment is the 3-year-old, if she feels she can't do something in the way that she wants to do it, it's just a big outburst. She's angry. She'll stand there and she'll be like, nah, and and I'm like, 50% of the time I'm like, whoa, don't shout at me. But their only way to express that is exactly how she's expressed it. So I have these moments where I'm like, oh, what does my reaction need to be here? Because she needs to feel that she can fully express myself. Because I've seen that tiny little look in her eye when I close her down, that she feels diminished and she feels smaller because she can't express herself in exactly the way that she wants and feels she needs to. And I don't think I've quite figured out this kind of balance yet. And in our home, we just usually let a lot of the emotion kind of roll out, and we kind of just talk about it and play around with it. But that's kind of the only area at the moment where I feel like, oh, like, am I getting that right? Because I know how impressionable it was on me as a child, not being able to have everything that I was seeing and heard and felt and loved. Everything was like, oh, don't do that, you'll break it. Don't shout like that because you'll disturb that person. Like, everything was an inconvenience. But as kids, we're incredibly expressive.
For sure.
We want to do things, hit things, jump, run. And so much of that is squashed because it's like, you know, almost don't disturb the peace in so many different ways. So I think the major thing for me as a parent is I'm way slower, like way slower in life, present. Like, I don't have my phone around them, again, as a thing, because just want them to have my attention. Very intentional. Whenever they want to play, I'll do my best to play. Like, that's how they want to connect with me and be with me and bond. And they're the things that they remember. Oh, remember that silly thing we did in the lounge where we pretended we built a boat and then, you know, whatever. Like, that's the ridiculous things that kids love.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a lot of time as a dad. Like, I spend 4 to 6 hours a day at home. Like, I'm a very present parent. So I have a lot of time to figure things out and work through things and kind of learn in the trenches even more, because I am in the trenches quite a lot. But there, I'd say the big things for me as a parent that I've changed on.
Gorgeous. And there's been so many changes, you know, in your life from kind of 18 onwards, so many different junctures. And at the Intuitive Psychology Association, we're so proud that so many of our students are change makers in the world. They have that courage to evolve with their identities, to have the courage to allow those parts that don't resonate to shed. So I'm curious for you, Ben, what does the next chapter look like? What is the big purpose that you feel called to? You may not have that fully figured out. It may be kind of, you know, in the evolution kind of tank over here. But what changed with everything that you know now, and when you know better, you do better, what change do you personally feel called to make in the world?
I like this question because it's actually something that I've almost fully embodied as of yesterday. There was like some slight internal friction, and I did a breath session all around it yesterday, a very, very powerful breath session. And so my future is to help men free themselves in the way that I've freed myself. And freedom for me is freedom of health. So body, physical body, and the mental body. So you think clearly, you think positively. Freedom of time, and then freedom of money, because that is going to equate to ultimately a good life. So that's what I do with my one-to-one clients right now. I coach high-performing entrepreneurial men, and within that, I'm able to kind of work on the tools and techniques that I think are really serving men, because I think it's different to women. In my experience, I found women a little bit easier to coach on the deeper stuff because the emotions are there. They're just there in front of us. Whereas for a man, they're, in my experience so far, they're locked in a box, and getting access to them is challenging, and even starting to drop into the subconscious is a challenge. They want to be somewhere else. They want to be doing something. Where's the transaction here? God, can't this coaching be faster? Why isn't this coaching faster? Why haven't I got a result now? So I'm trying to work out all of these kind of tools and what the kind of right kind of transformational kind of experiences and moments will really help men. I know what's helped me, and it was through trauma release therapy and energy healing with, the practitioner I use. But the major tool for me was breath work. It's been unbelievably transformative. So I'm now going through figuring out how to train as a breathwork facilitator, and I want to bring kind of conscious level self-development alongside breath work, and then kind of these deep exploratory modalities, journaling, meditation, that kind of stuff, and kind of create a kind of program and experience. So that's kind of the long-term vision. So at the moment I'm coaching one-to-one, and then I'm going to build a business and life mastermind for entrepreneur men to take them kind of on a long-term journey. And then over time, I'm sort of building this kind of transformative experience. Think, I don't know, Tony Robbins, 2 or 3 days, conscious level work, then breath work, then sharing, and then, So that's, I know the journey. I just haven't figured out all the pieces yet.
Yeah. Needed. So needed in the world. And I love that you're bringing this to more men, and you that nod to men want to just put it in a box and, okay, I need to get there faster, and accessing those feelings. And obviously what's so great is you have these different modalities, the breath work, and obviously you're accredited intuitive psychology coach with us, and you have a suite of techniques there as well, where you're going to be able to really support these people. Because it's one thing even doing a breath work, what I found, because I qualify in November as a breathwork teacher, and for me all of these things are wonderful, but some people can be re-traumatized. But what I love about what you're saying, Ben, is all of your skills, and as a coach as well, and you're fully accredited, you're going to be able to not just re-traumatize someone in a session and they're off they go. Actually, it's this full package. It's being able to understand people, getting them on a deeper level, accessing their unconscious, and then coaching through it. What's the follow-up through it? And I think that's a part that we don't see a lot in the world. We see a lot of amazing people doing things, but what happens when someone leaves a session and then that's it? Actually, the real work is, that deeper process of an integration, which, being accredited as a coach as well allows you to really hold a deeper space, and that integrity piece as well is absolutely massive, so I'm excited to see what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and all of those different modalities can really come together in the most beautiful way. And I think this is the exciting thing about becoming a coach and shedding those identities, is you get to take like a multimodality approach and really find something that sits and works for you. And it can be that form, once you let go of that identity and give yourself permission that I am in a chapter of change, and actually I can still be Ben, awesome supplements, and that can still run, and it's a yes and rather than like a complete kind of like have to break it all down and rebuild it again. So it's an exciting chapter for you. I'd love to close with this question. So you've obviously trained with us, we've mentioned that kind of a few times. What appealed to you about that training, and what would you say to someone who was considering training to become an intuitive psychology coach?
Yeah, so the course is great. It was intense. So anyone thinking about it, kind of, really be ready to do the work. It's not watch a little 30-minute webinar and, do a multi-choice. Like, you're going to be challenged. When I was going through my journey, the sessions that I would have with this lady, Britta, we did a lot of work with the subconscious where we were traveling back into my childhood, and she didn't quite do it how the IPA teach it, but the premise of working with parts as a technique, she was doing that both on a guided, semi-conscious kind of level, but she was also doing it energetically. Yeah. And as the coach, there's always a small part of my brain that's observing what the coach, the mentor is doing, so I can kind of use it or embody it. I'm learning from the experience. I'm not just the client. And I kept observing this technique, and I was like, this technique's unbelievably powerful. And I remember talking to you about the course and like looking at all the syllabus and stuff, and I just saw this kind of technique labeled working with parts. And it was one of the things I was like, that technique has been transformative for me, that single technique. And I've used it. It's probably the number one technique that I've used from the course, because I think it's such a great technique. And I was like, I want to learn how to do that. Like, yes. And I think the way that you pitch your course with, like, I really respect modern psychology, but I also really appreciate what has been done for thousands of years, and like the rites of passage of all the past generations of people that have used certain techniques and tools. And I was like, there's got to be a way that we can blend the old and the new. Like, quite often you'll see the old camp, which we might say is like woo-woo, and then you'll get the modern camp where it's all clinical, psychological, like quite conscious-led. And I'm like, no. There is this beautiful middle, and I want to see where that is. And you do that, and that's what really kind of, those things really drew me into the course.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Beautiful. So we're going to have to draw this to a close, but it's a shame because I feel like we both have so many questions. But Ben, if people want to connect with you following this, if they're kind of curious to follow your evolution, or maybe they're intrigued about the supplement business side, everything that we've talked about, what is the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, come say hello. I'm on social media. My handle is Ben Coomber, Coomber, on all the social medias. The supplement company is called Awesome Supplements. We're a 20-time award-winning supplement company. So that's kind of like my day job, being the CEO of that. And then my side hustle, or my moonlighting, is kind of the coaching and mentoring, and it works really well. So yeah, come say hello if you feel called to say hello.
Amazing, Ben. Thank you so much. And we will drop all of your handles and your links in the show notes as well. But what an amazing conversation. And yeah, we're excited to see your next evolution. Thank you so much, Ben.
Me too.
Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us. That was a great episode with Ben. We absolutely loved hearing about his journey and that identity that he had to shift along the way.
So good, and so open and honest. There were so many things in there I didn't actually know about Ben, and so it was really good to hear his personal story. I think many people relate to more of the personal story, especially navigating that change, through success and actually having those rock bottom moments.
Yeah, and shifting that identity as a coach as well. And we've got more to share on this. So in our next episode, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into that resistance that we often feel whenever we're shedding those identities, whenever we are being called to evolve into the next version of ourselves. Whether or not you're feeling this in your corporate career, whether or not you're an existing coach and you want to go deeper with your work, stay tuned, because in the next episode, we're going to be diving deeper into what it really takes to evolve into the coach that you know that you're meant to be.